calling the Peer Review Oversight Committee meeting to order. Welcome to the December 12, 2025 Peer Review Oversight Committee meeting. This meeting is being conducted in person and via WebEx with the assistance of the Department of Consumer Affairs. My name is Fausto Hinojosa, and I am the chair of the California Board of Accountancy's Peer Review Oversight Committee, or PROC. Following the presentation of each agenda item, I will open the item for discussion and action if appropriate. PROC members participating virtually should use the raise hand feature and wait to be called on. I also ask that our members participating virtually keep their microphones on mute when not speaking. The PROC welcomes and encourages public participation throughout the meeting. Members of the public have an opportunity to provide comment in person or via the WebEx platform. Instructions on how to make a public comment will be provided whenever a comment period is open. It will be allotted up to 5 minutes for public comment. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Parsons to take roll call and establish a quorum. When Mr. Parsons calls your name, unmute your microphone and state your name. Please remember to mute your microphone once you have stated your name.
Thank you.
Mr. Parsons.
Jennifer Benjamin.
Jennifer Benjamin.
Vikram Deshpande.
Vikram Deshpande.
Fausto Hinojosa.
Fausto Hinojosa.
Nick Peterson.
Nick Peterson.
Alan Gittleson. Laura Ross.
Laura Ross.
Jeffrey DeLizer.
Jeffrey DeLizer.
With that, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I will now read the CBA's mission statement. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. I would like to begin by welcoming our new PROC member, Vikram Deshpande. Mr. Deshpande, would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Vikram. I've been in the public accounting space for about 18 years. Work for a public accounting firm here in San Francisco. I'm a partner at this firm. And primarily work in the financial services space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deshpande. We look forward to working with you on the PROC. I will begin with item 1, which provides members of the public an opportunity to provide comment on items not on the agenda. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment?
There are no members of the public in Sacramento.
Thank you. Moderator, please open the lines for public comment for item 1.
There are no members of the public online.
Okay, so moving on to item number 2. Next on our agenda is the approval of the August 8, 2025 PROC meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
What is that?
So moved to adopt the minutes.
Which member is that? I'm sorry.
Jennifer Benjamin.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Benjamin. Do I have a second?
Second,
Nick.
Laura Ross.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Are there any comments from members? Next is public comment. And I think we've established there's nobody in the audience on site there. Moderator, Please open the lines for public comment.
All right, WebEx is open for public comment on agenda item 2 and the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have request. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda or the motion?
Yes, Mr. Parsons, please call for a vote.
Jeffrey DeLizer,
Approved.
Laura Ross,
Approved.
Fausto Hinojosa,
Approved.
Nick Peterson,
Approved.
Vikram Deshpande.
Approved.
The motion carries.
Moving on to item 3, report of the recent CBA meetings. CBA member Evangeline Ward is unable to attend today, so the report will be given by Sarah Benedict, manager of the License Renewal and Continuing Competency Unit.
Good morning, Chair Hinojosa and members of the PROC. I am CBA License Renewal Manager Sarah Benedict, and I will be providing the report for the September and November CBA meetings. Starting with September, the CBA met at the Marriott in Burbank. During the meeting, CBA members and staff had the opportunity to conduct an outreach event at California State University, Northridge. They held a presentation where members spoke to students, and the staff did several hours of transcript review for students. Staff reported that the CBA's sponsored legislation, Assembly Bill 1175, passed the Senate with a unanimous floor vote on September 2nd and was officially presented to the governor on September 9th. The bill was subsequently signed by the governor on October 3rd. The CBA approved proposed regulations and the initiation of a rulemaking to implement the various provisions of AB 1175. The CBA continued its discussion on modernizing continuing education requirements, focused on 2 main topics. The first was revising criteria to ensure CE course providers offer quality courses and address how CE course providers can use artificial intelligence in CE. The second was on, use artificial intelligence in CE course development while ensuring the accuracy of content. The second item was the 80-hour CE requirement for active license renewal. Research was presented indicating that virtually all other states require 80 hours of CE at each renewal or 40 hours per year. However, other professions require fewer than 80 hours for license renewal. Additional research will be conducted on this topic, including obtaining feedback from stakeholders and licensees. The CBA did emphasize ethics should be regularly taken to ensure licensees are learning and engaging in ethical practices. This topic will continue to be discussed, and a proposal will be presented at a future meeting. During the Committee on Professional Conduct, Mr. Franzella provided a presentation regarding alternate practice structures, or APS, which included information about APS and the evolution of private equity and CPA firms. Mr. Franzella noted that he was appointed to the NASBA Private Equity Task Force, and he would be participating in a panel discussion at the NASBA annual conference regarding this topic. All right, moving on to the November meeting. The CBA elected Kristen Latta, CPA, as president, Doug Aguilera, CPA, as vice president, and Patricia R. Batchelor, CPA, as secretary-treasurer. We also reappointed Fausto Hinojosa, CPA, to serve as our PROC chair, and Nick Peterson, CPA, to serve as the vice PROC chair for 1-year terms effective January 1st, 2026. The CBA approved the 2026 PROC meeting dates. The CBA had the opportunity to receive a presentation for representatives from Ernst & Young, LLP, Richard Jackson and Ryan Liu, regarding artificial intelligence, or AI. The presentation included discussions regarding AI's latest trends, strategies, and opportunities, at-risk management and global regulatory landscape, AI and the future of finance and the audit, governance and responsible AI, trends and considerations for management and the board. You can view that presentation on the CBA's website. Staff provided an overview of activities to implement the CBA's 2025 through 2029 strategic plan, which included expanding cross-training, promoting internal office culture, and promoting professional development. Staff also presented the 2024-2025 CBA annual report. The annual report will be available to view on the CBA's website this month. The CBA also approved a comment letter expressing our support of the AICPA and NASBA exposure draft on the proposed statements of standards for continuing professional education programs. They approved the reauthorization of rulemaking to amend, add, and repeal changes to previously proposed text consistent with AB 1175 to correct typos, a drafting error, and inconsistencies. The CBA will hold its next regularly scheduled meeting in person at the California Board of Accountancy and via WebEx on January 22nd and 23rd, 2026. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benedict, for providing an overview of CBA activities. Are there any comments or questions from members? Hearing none, next is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment?
There are still no members of the public here in Sacramento.
Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 3. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Item 4A is the report of the Cal CPA report acceptance body meetings, and I will present this item. Since our last meeting, 8 RABs, short for report acceptance body, were attended by our committee members. Written reports are submitted for each of those RAB meetings, and it was the conclusion of the committee members that the RAB meetings met expectations. So there is nothing further to report about those meetings. Are there any comments or questions from members? Next is public comment. We've established there are no members of the public at the CBA. A moderator, please open it up for public comment.
WebEx is taking public comment on agenda item 4A as an alpha. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3. And we're going to call on Rich Smithian. Hold on just a moment. You can unmute at will.
Okay, thank you. I didn't have any specific comment on the report, but I did want to point out, by the way, my name is Rich Smitty and I'm the peer review director for Cal CPA. I did want to point out that during this period, we did have some cancellations of RAB meetings, which when that happens, we notify the board and typically the PROC representative that of the cancellation that is taking place, was taking place. I just wanted to point out the reason for that is in many instances it was really just a workflow and a volume of work. We schedule out that 6-month period, the RAB meetings 6 months in advance, and we typically have had 5 meetings per month. And we have found that with the reduction of the number of, we've seen a reduction in the number of reviews, and as a result, we haven't had as necessary as many meetings. So we had to cancel at least 2 during this time period. So I just wanted to point that out to the PROC members. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No further public comments. Thank you, Mr. Smidian. We will move on to item 4B. Item 4B is the report on the PROC of out-of-state administering entities. I will turn this item over to Laura Ross.
Thank you. Um, the AICPA performed their oversight for Ohio on December 14th, 2022. So we reviewed their report. They had no findings, so it was a clean report. So we have no additional questions on the oversight for the Ohio Society's peer review program at this time. And for Florida, I believe that was Mr. DeLizer who did that oversight. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen Florida.
Yes.
Florida's also listed in the agenda.
Hold on. There we go. Yes, Florida was also done. Their oversight was conducted September of 22. It met expectations. This was just a written item only. The previous report had no findings. This one had no findings, so nothing to report.
So that's it. We'll turn it back over to Mr. Hinosa.
Thank you both for your reports. Are there any comments or questions from members? Hearing none. Next is public comment. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
Now is the time to raise your hand for public comment on 4B as in Bravo. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Item 4C is the report on the AICPA and NASBA websites regarding changes and updates to the peer review program. I will now turn it over to Jeff DeLizer and Jennifer Benjamin to present.
And Jennifer, you can add to the what I thought I would do is share kind of my overview, and then Jennifer, if you've got stuff to add, please do so. Looking at the NASBA website, there was not a lot of directly peer review related material there. There was as mentioned in the report from the Board of Accountancy meetings related to private equity task force, there is a reference in the exposure drafts related to these alternative practice structures and private equity that basically states that this white paper kind of claims that peer review remains the primary mechanism for monitoring and enhancing the non-issuer attest services, that function. So it references it indirectly as being one of the only methods out there to monitor the quality of those engagements. There's also some CPE standards that were issued and relayed on the NASBA AICPA website that kind of indirectly refer to peer review as well. On the AICPA's website, most of the articles relate to the new quality management standards that become effective this month, and so the final standards were issued, and the clarified all those standards are available for download from the AICPA's website. In addition, there are a couple of newsletters that I have reported on the last couple of months. There was not a new peer review prompts newsletter, which is the semi-annual newsletter for peer reviewers to use to disclose information to their clients, the firms they review. The spring issue that I reported on in August was the last one that I saw posted there. And then the other newsletter that they post, the reviewer alerts, and that provides communication for peer reviewers to kind of focus their attention on current issues. There were 3 of those that I saw posted September, October, and December. Most of the articles in those alerts are related to the the new quality management standards and updates and reminders about that, and then reports on the AICPA's peer review meeting, and their peer review board meetings were also reported on, and then again just documentation tips and tips for peer reviewers related to as they engage with the new quality management standards. But there are 3 of those newsletters. They're pretty good articles if you want to take a look at them. Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you. Did you have other stuff to?
The only other thing that I would add, and Jeff, you did a great job, thank you, is that there are some new practice aids out there for different practitioners. Importantly, for forensic accounting, there are some new practice aids that have been updated, and for any of those people that are practicing in that area. So I just wanted to let you know that. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. DeLizer and Ms. Benjamin, for your report. Are there any comments or questions from members? Hearing none, next is public comment. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
WebEx is once again open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. For item 4D, I will now turn it over to Matthew Parsons, who will be seeking volunteers for activities listed in attachment 1.
Thank you, Chair Hinojosa. Actually, we'll be looking at attachment 1, the last page there. We have a couple items outstanding to wrap up the year. And then if you could look at attachment 3, we do have some RABs that were added in early December that I've added to that. Just for future reference, I do anticipate getting the RABs February through June. And I will definitely reach out regarding those RABs in February when I receive them. Otherwise, the rest will be presented at the February PROC meeting. So to begin here on attachment 1, we do need 2 volunteers for the out-of-state review, one being Peer Review Alliance, the other the Massachusetts Society of CPAs. I have a kind of a weird angle here at the board. If you could unmute your microphone and let me know if you are okay with volunteering for either of those.
This is Jennifer Benjamin. I will volunteer for one of those.
Okay, and you're okay with either one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is Laura Ross. I'll do Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you. We do have the website updates for the next meeting. Any volunteers for that?
This is Jeff DeLizer. I can volunteer.
Okay.
This is Vikram. I can also volunteer and join, Jeff, in that process.
Okay, I'll likely initiate that. Just a reminder to work together. This would be your first time doing that, Vikram. So I as I did with Jennifer, I'll kind of encourage that conversation between the two of you before engaging in that, so you kind of have an idea.
Absolutely.
All right, attachment 3. So I do have some RABs listed there. The January 13th RAB. Any volunteers for that?
I can do that, Jennifer Benjamin.
All right, thank you. Let's see here, January 20th.
This is Fausto. I can handle that one.
Okay, thank you. The January 22nd RAB at 2 p.m. Okay, we do have the CBA meeting in January. Chair Hinojosa, I assume will attend that. If not, we will reach out to Vice Chair Peterson should he not be able to attend. And then we have the RAB on January 29th at 9 a.m.?
By the way, this is Jennifer Benjamin. I will take the 20th if you don't have anybody.
Chair Hinoyosa volunteered for that one. The 22nd was the one I kind of moved
Okay.
over. You able to do that?
No, sorry, I can't. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
This is Nick Peterson. I can do the 29th.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, which will bring us up to our next meeting. Again, I had told you about the RABs moving forward with those, but we do have on February 11th, if anyone is interested in attending, AICPA does have a peer review board open session. Chair Hinoyosa attended 2 of those this year. If we can get a couple of those done throughout the year, I've listed them for the remainder of the year, but if anyone's available for that, I'll take volunteers.
This is Laura. This is February 11th.
This is February 11th.
I haven't found the sheet with your list on it yet. Is there a time? Is there do we have a
It's
time frame?
I believe it's an all-day thing. Perhaps Chair Hinoyosa could shed more light on that, but I believe it's or an afternoon, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually,
Okay.
I think they've been in the morning. They start maybe at 11 East Coast time. So I think it's been like from 8 to 10 or 11 our time. And the last couple have actually gone much quicker than the time allotted.
Okay.
So
I can,
it's you know, you can listen in, and they also provide a good summary after the meeting of what was discussed.
I can do the 11th.
Okay, great. And as with the RABs, I will provide you with the checklist for that as well.
Okay.
All right. With that, I will turn it back over to Chair Hinoyosa. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any comments or any other comments or questions from members?
Hi, this is Vikram. I probably want to start attending the RABs. So the first time, is it recommended to kind of go with another member? So I'll have availability except for January 22nd. I can probably shadow someone or go with someone on the other RABs. 13th as well as the 29th.
Okay, let's add you to the 29th. Nick has been on the committee for a while here now, and I think he'd be good to work with on it. Nick, if you're all right with that?
Completely okay.
Perfect. Vikram, I have you down for attending the 9 a.m. RAB on January 29th with member Peterson, pardon me.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll just add one more thing. In the past, I have not, but starting the last meeting, I believe I sent kind of a summary of who's volunteered for what. The assumption was you all were making note of what you were signing up for, but moving forward, I will have, after this meeting, kind of an update for everybody on what you've volunteered for to make it a little easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Any other comments or questions from members? Hearing none. Next is public comment. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
All right, Rich, you're free to unmute at will.
Thank you. And I think Matthew is aware of this, but for the benefit of the committee, when we're scheduling out our RAD meetings for 2026, as I mentioned earlier, we reduced the number of RAD meetings in the last 6-month period. As we're looking out over the next 6 months and candidly over the next year, we expect the number of RAD meetings per month to be at 4 meetings, which is down from what we've had in past periods where it's been between 5 and 6. And I know that the PROC and the committee members I think you try to reach a minimum number of meetings per year. So I just wanted to give you some advance notice that the number of meetings will be reduced from the prior periods. I don't know what that cycle is, but pretty consistently we're looking at 4 months. That could expand if we see an increase and an uptick in the number of cases, but we think 4 should be sufficient per year, per month rather, per year.
Thank you, Mr. Semidian, for your comments. Hearing no further comments, we'll move on to item 4E. Item 4E is the report on the October 3rd, 2025 Peer Review Oversight Committee's virtual administrative site visit to the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. I will now turn it over to Laura Ross, and I guess Mr. Gittleson is not joining us today, but Ms. Ross, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so we did the ASV on October 3rd. It ended up being a single day ASV again. Just we now have some continuity, and it went quite smoothly. We only had a few items that really generated a lot of discussion, or not even a lot of discussion. One of them being that this week, the quality management standards, I guess, are being implemented by it's a change to audit standards from the AICPA. And this will present going forward some potential disruption as everyone acclimates to the change, as a learning curve, as the reviewers and as the auditors themselves start to implement these changes. But this hasn't happened yet, so it didn't really impact this ASV at all. But this is something that we'll be looking for in the coming years. Pennsylvania is still assisting Cal CPA quite a bit, and it's a good relationship. And the only other issue that was discussed really was basically peer review of alternative practice structures, and it was noted that these will probably be done in the future by the National Peer Review Committee and not by Cal CPA, so it also probably will not impact the peer reviews that are taking place with Cal CPA anymore. And other than that, it was everything was very clear and outlined well, and the report will be issued soon.
Thank you, Ms. Ross, for your report. Are there any comments or questions from members? My only comment is that, as we heard, I think previously from Mr. DeLizer monitoring the website, and now Ms. Ross, and I think all of us are familiar and aware of the quality management standards. And so it will be interesting to see the impact that has on peer review here moving forward. And I would imagine that there will be some challenges for firms implementing, and that there probably will be some matters identified in peer reviews. And I expect that the AICPA and maybe Cal CPA will provide and is providing already guidance on how those matters will be addressed in upcoming peer reviews. So that's my comment. Any other comments or questions from members? Hearing none, next is public comment. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
All right, now is the time to raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. And Mr. Smithian, you are free to unmute at will.
Wanted to acknowledge the coordination both by the committee members who participated in this year's site visit and staff who also play an important role in making sure that process goes well. Cal CPA had to defer the start of that because of some other competing priorities, and the committee members were accommodating to our schedule. But I know we do know that August seems to be a better time period for that, so we'll commit to get back to that. This year we had to push it out here a little bit as a result of some other things that we had going on. But we do appreciate the assistance, and it's always a learning opportunity for us when we get some questions and a fresh perspective on things. So thank you for your questions, thoughtful questions, as we went through this year's administrative site visit.
Thank you, Mr. Simidian, for your comments. Hearing no further comments, we will move on to item number 5. I'm going to take the reports in item 5 out of order. Let's address the three written reports in items 5A, 5B, and 5D first, followed by public comment on those three reports together. Item 5A is the AICPA's annual report on the oversight of the peer review program. This is a written report only, and there will be no presentation. Are there any comments or questions from members? Seeing or hearing none, we'll move forward. Item 5B is the AICPA's annual report on peer review activities. This also is a written report only, and there will be no presentation. Are there any comments or questions from members on this item? Seeing or hearing none, we'll move to item 5D, which is a report on alternative practice structures. This is a written report only, and there will be no presentation. Are there any comments or questions from members on this item? Seeing or hearing none, next is public comment. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
Now is the time to raise your hand on the rest of agenda item 4 if you'd like to make a comment. You can do so by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. And we're going to wait just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. For item 5C, I will now turn it over to Michelle Center.
Thank you. The purpose of item 5C is to discuss PROC's 2025 annual report. We're really going to miss Sharon right now as we do this. She's normally so active and helpful in our review, so I'm counting on all of you today. So CBA staff asks that the PROC review the draft annual report and provide feedback and edits. The annual report will be brought to the PROC again in February for final approval. At this time, I will open up for discussion. I will go through section by section, or however it flows. If you have an edit or comment, raise your hand. And then if we can limit our comments to those things that require really a discussion of the PROC, that would be helpful. If you have noted any typos or grammar corrections, you can just send those to staff immediately following this meeting. The other thing I want to note is that data presented in Table 15 of the annual report has been updated since its initial presentation in item 5A in August. So the data in Table 15 now is accurately reflects California's top reviewers in 2024. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go through this. I feel like I should kind of start with like a larger chunk, and then we can kind of limit that to smaller ones if there are no comments. So are there any comments on pages 1 through 9? If Sharon were here, I know I'd have to have a smaller chunk. Okay. I don't see any hands raised. If I missed you, just unmute yourself. Okay. What about if we go through page 20? Okay. How about, this is very unusual. This has never happened before. Okay. How about if we go all the way up to page 26, where we have those recommendations? Is there anything prior to the recommendations? Okay, well, let's talk through these recommendations. So we have drafted some recommendations for your consideration. So let's talk about those. The first is related to the peer reviewer population. The next one is really a carryover, and it relates to the assistance that Cal CPA receives from Pennsylvania. The third one has to do with alternative practice structures. We have heard that mentioned earlier. I believe Member Ross was the one who pointed out that at this point in time, there is an expectation that NPRC is going to be doing those particular peer reviews. This just allows us this recommendation for PROC to kind of make sure that if that changes or if there are any other pieces of information that come about that puts Cal CPA and our state peer review program really more in a driver's seat on that, that we have a recommendation in here to deal with that. The last one has to do with whether or not we want to increase the information that the board currently receives related to firms that resign from the peer review program. Usually you're going to see that happening because they either do not do that work any longer, or maybe their firm is closing, so they are no longer needing to be enrolled in the program. But the board currently does not receive any particular list of those firms, though we can look up and see that a firm has not enrolled. And so if there was any desire for the board to look at a particular firm over time that may enroll and then not enroll for a period of time, and that kind of changes over time from enrolled and not, we would really not have an easy way of looking at that right now. So those are things for you to discuss and give feedback on whether or not those are recommendations that you would like included in the report. And we're also open to other ideas that you would like to discuss for recommendations. I'll turn it back over to you, Fausto.
Thank you, Michelle. So you're looking for discussion about any one of these recommendations now?
Yes, please.
So any members that have comment on any that I'm thinking about the final one about the firms that resign from the program, and it does appear that the risk would be that a firm unenrolls, but then soon thereafter performs A&A work, and or during an unenrolled period, but which they shouldn't, right? That would be in violation of Board of Accountancy rules. But there are some timing challenges, and what I experience with some firms is that they complete a peer review, and then maybe they had a fail report or password deficiency, or for other reasons decide not to continue performing A&A work. One or two in the year immediately following the peer review year. And then I think I asked Matthew and Sarah yesterday about this, and now they're still required to have a peer review, but they've decided not to do any A&A work. So a peer reviewer would be performing a peer review of year one of that 3-year period when the firm is no longer doing A&A work. So I don't know if that seems related to this bullet point 4 about firms unenrolling, but it seems to me unnecessary for a firm to have a peer review on engagements that are 3 years old when the firm is no longer what the answer is, but it does seem excessive, or it just logically doesn't flow for me. Any other members have comments?
This is Jennifer Benjamin. I have a question with regard to bullet point number 2 on page 26 with regard to Pennsylvania. It says continue to monitor. Don't we monitor other states as well, or is that the only one?
We do monitor other
We can change how
states.
that's worded if it's helpful. We monitor Pennsylvania more frequently because of the relationship that they have with Cal CPA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then maybe we can go back to Foster's comment. I know Laura Ross is maybe able to assist me in this, but I think we did have a conversation about firms not enrolling in peer review during the ASV, if I remember correctly. Part, I think, of the concern is that they may have issues that they need to clear up based on their last peer review. Maybe then they unenroll from the program, indicate that they are not doing activities that would require them to do a peer review, and then later decide that they are going to do those activities. I think there is a question about whether or not we would like to be able to communicate with those firms that are leaving the program, but that firm is not closing, so that we can remind them of their responsibility to either participate in peer review or not do those activities that would require a peer review if that firm is still open. Right now, the board does not really have a mechanism to do that communication, because we would have to do it for all of those that are not enrolled. We have no way of knowing which firms have designated that they are opting to resign from the program. Does that help to kind of clarify, Fausto?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes sense to me. And that is the risk, that there would be a firm performing ANA work that outside of, or not having peer reviews conducted. And so it does make sense to get the list of unenrolled firms, because otherwise I don't know how the board can perform its regulatory oversight. And even then, sending a letter informing them is helpful. But if a firm is, I don't know what current process exists for firms that are doing ANA work and that are not having peer reviews done, if they are self-identifying, or just on the Board of Accountancy form, they just mark that they are not subject to peer review. Is that what currently is happening? Do the firms just say, we're not doing ANA work?
Right, they self-report whether or not they are subject to peer review.
Right, and there is no current mechanism to identify those firms. So it's only the firms that self-report properly that are subject to scrutiny. Any firm that doesn't self-report is outside of the regulatory peer review process, it seems. So there's something there that probably does need to be.
And I do want to point out that Cal CPA, in their role as the administering entity, they do provide information and guidance to firms. So if a firm indicates they want to re-enroll after a period of time, they do ask them those questions about whether or not they performed work, whether or not there should have been a closeout peer review report at the end of when they stopped performing those activities. So Cal CPA is doing that on their end. That just isn't information that we currently have available. I will say it's also information that we are not 100% sure is available. So if this is a recommendation, it's really a recommendation for staff to, start those conversations with Cal CPA and AICPA to determine whether or not this is information that is coded in such a way that it could be passed on to us.
Thanks, Michelle. Mr. Smidian?
Yes, I know I'm maybe out of order, and I'm part of the public, but I did just want to share a couple of pieces of information that may be relevant. When firms do identify or to notify us that they would be unenrolling, I guess, from the program, we do remind them that to the extent they performed A&A work from the date of their last peer review period through the date of their notification, we do remind them that they are still subject to peer review. I know, Fausto, you indicated you didn't necessarily agree with that, but that is a reminder. We do remind them of that requirement. And in many instances, and as a result of that, mechanically, we have to go back and sort of move up, if you will, the reporting date to really the last period. So it requires sort of a change in the year. And so effectively, they'll be completing a peer review. I think Michelle characterizes as their final report there. I guess they would do that after 1 year or 2 years after their previous peer review report was completed. So that's step one. We don't just necessarily let them go when that is the case without proper notification of what the requirements are within the program. In situations where somebody has no longer enrolls, but then comes back and re-enrolls, we don't treat that as a brand new case. So if to the extent they have been performing work, which they shouldn't have been, but to the extent they have been performing work during that intervening period, one, there's a re-enrollment cost to the firm to do that. There's a higher cost to go back into the cost to get back in the program. Two, there's no free rides. We require that they go back to that 3rd year period from their last peer review if there's evidence that there was any A&A work during that time period. So if they come back to us and say we now are beginning to do an A&A work, we look back over that period of time, even if it's 6 years or 9 years. And we've had instances where firms stopped doing it 2 cycles ago and they came back and we look to see the earliest point in which they performed that work. And we're obviously guarding against the safeguard there is to try to avoid situations where people drop out of the program but continue to perform that work and then expect that, well, they had a period of time where they weren't subject to peer review because they weren't enrolled in a program. In that instance, we would go back. It's not timely, but we do perform this. So I just wanted to make sure that was information that I shared with the committee.
Thanks, Rich. And yes, both Cal CPA and Board of Accountancy staff are following procedure with respect to even if there's only one engagement after that last peer review, that peer review is still applicable because I've reached out to both internally at the Board of Accountancy and to Cal CPA. And so that is the standard communication. And so I think that's good and consistent and requirements, regardless of my opinion about those. So thank you both for sharing that. Any other members?
Just final comment, if I may, and just happy to continue the dialogue as to how we can provide gather information. It's not something that we, as we provide the list to drop to terminated firms. Both those categories are basically involuntary terminations from the program around that, but we or AICPA for that matter has not provided that information. But happy to talk, continue the discussion with staff. We don't track it, so we'd have to develop some mechanism to develop that, but happy to continue that discussion with staff.
This is Laura. I have a question. I'm not sure if it's Rich or Michelle, but do we have, when a firm has resigned and then they restart doing A&A work, what is their time frame for letting you know? Is it when they do the license renewal? Or do they actually have, is there a mechanism where they should notify right away, we have restarted doing this work?
I can provide our answer from a peer review perspective, but I think that answer, well, I think it would be different than the licensing requirement. From a peer review standpoint, they have a limited period of time from the point they've issued their first engagement. It's typically within 90 days, or I think in some cases 120 days, depending on the level of A&A work, where they then should notify an administering entity, presumably us, doesn't always have to be us, but that they have now performed that work. So there's a relatively short period of time after they've initiated their first engagement, whether that's
That's
a
what I
brand new
wanted to
firm
know.
or a renewal.
Yeah,
So
that they had to
that doesn't
notify,
mean
they
they have
have
to do
to,
the peer review.
yeah.
Uh,
So it's not like they can wait until their next license. They should actually notify the administrator at within 90 days or so,
that
approximately.
yeah, that is the requirement from
Okay.
a peer review professional, but from a licensing standpoint, I'm not sure if there is a earlier
Hi,
notification
Laura.
requirements.
They do not need to tell the CBA that they've started doing attest engagements again until it's time for their renewal. So if they
Okay.
were to begin doing them in the middle of their renewal cycle, they would need to contact the peer review program, but they would not need to let the CBA know until license renewal.
Yeah. That
Jeff?
answers it. Yeah. That
Oh,
they
sorry.
do have a smaller window other than waiting. I'm thinking right after they license, they could go up to a year before they announce to CBA, but they would have to notify the peer review administrator.
And they have 18 months from their first engagement to get their peer review. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback on mine. Okay, try it again. All right, perfect. Like I said, they have 18 months after their first attest engagement to have their peer review. So there is kind of some overlap with the timeframes there. They may come up for renewal and maybe they are subject to peer review, but they haven't done it yet. We do have a reporting mechanism for that. They let us know that they're in the program. We can go into Prima and verify that they are in the program if we have questions about that. Once they're in the program, if they continue to do A&A, they're supposed to do it every 3 years. If they're coming and going, it gets a little weird, but I would think that they would still need to do it within 18 months if they've resigned and then returned to the program.
Jeff, your hand's up. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I've just got a question on the last two bullet points of these recommendations. The first one related to the alternative practice structures. As I read it, as it's written there, it suggests that we're going to review and make recommendations for updates to the peer review program, meaning that we would, if directed by the CBA, and in assistance with them, we would make recommendations to the AICPA to update how they want those alternative practice structures to be peer reviewed, or are we saying that we will do research related to the impact of those alternative practice structures on the peer review program or the operation of the peer review program as a whole? I wasn't real sure on that one what we were trying to say with that recommendation. And then the last one where we're talking about, I think that much of my question has been answered, but currently we do not have a mechanism to track voluntary removals of a firm from the peer review process. Obviously, I think we track drops and terminations, but so my question is we don't currently have a mechanism to identify and track those that voluntarily resign. And then if we work with Cal CPA, should we be working also with the AICPA to get this information from Prima for those firms that are not administered by the Cal CPA? If I'm a California firm and I'm administered by another state, for example, do we want to incorporate that into our recommendation as well? So those were my two questions.
Thanks, Jeff. And reading that third bullet point, about the alternative practice structures. I guess, yeah, I have that question now, and maybe Michelle, you can help answer that. What was the thinking there?
I can, and Laura may be able to also assist. As part of the annual site visit, looking at this particular question was one of the things that were added to our new ASV checklist that allows us to add specific questions that have arisen over the last year. And this was one of them. And one of the questions that members asked and they reviewed was, how does a peer reviewer know that the firm that they are reviewing has one of these alternative practice structures, given that that may impact the risk? And so that was something that we looked at. Laura might be able to provide some information on what she thought of that. But I think that it will be interesting to see if there ends up being more direct questions related to that, because right now it is not asked in a very direct manner at all. And so, Laura, do you want to add any information based on what you saw?
The conversation, I mean, it was a concern initially. We brought it up, I think, because it starts to become, you know, that it's much more difficult to detect independence issues if there's an alternative practice structure. And, you know, and this was all new. I mean, that really hasn't been discussed much. And I believe Rich had told us that there was there was a little bit of a process already as far as looking at these, but what we ended up doing, I mean, the conversation really evolved into that there's going to be, you know, the National Peer Review Committee would probably be taking this on, so we didn't need to worry about it too much at this point because CalCPA wouldn't be doing those reviews. But I think I mean, our discussions were more around independence and how do I, you know, that we couldn't even identify this necessarily up front if we didn't ask the right questions. I don't know if Rich remembers part of the conversation.
Right. So Laura, it was, you may recall we looked at the pre-survey that was to be completed by the firm. And there were definitely some things in that pre-survey where we had a conversation about, oh, those are some outdated terms or to that effect. And Mr. Sabidian may be able to add to that. And I think there was some questions about, will that particular survey be updated, particularly now that these peer reviews are going to be done more by the NPRC? How might those be flagged? And you're right, we may need to work on this particular question, but I think that was part of it. It was just more of a identification was part of the conversation, because I think in the end, there wasn't this added concern about risk and independence because of the ASV conversation. That did not end up being a concern.
Yeah, I think that was just the starting point as, and that's where we ended up.
So, Mr. Smithian, do you have any comment on that particular item? And if we wanted to phrase this in a way that was really not directed at the entire peer review program, but really the process of making sure that firms with these structures are appropriately identified, is there a way for us to know that? There's also, I think, just a basic interest in having that particular data. We were provided with information on a count of number of firms in California that supposedly have these structures, and we weren't. We asked where that data came from. We have not heard back from AICP on that request that was made in October.
I'll answer the last part first, which is these firms are self-reporting their firm is participated in an alternative practice structure, which has been defined a little bit better because there have been different models, I guess, and different ways in which those could be structured as well. But the discussion we had during the site visit was at the time the AICPA, which hasn't been finalized yet, but I expect it will be, and I can report back at the next PROC meeting. But at the time, the firms that participate or have one of these alternative practice structure was viewed as having an elevated risk profile, and to address this, the AICPA reached out to all the administering entities and said that for a period of time, that all of those firms' peer reviews would then be administered by the AICPA through their NPRC program, with the objective of having some consistency around addressing those issues and how the peer review was conducted. Now, in the meantime, there's been additional tools made available to the peer reviewers, including additional checklists and other questions, not just independence, but other areas that could result in elevated risk that should be addressed from the peer review. But I would expect that all of those peer reviews would be administered by the AICPA, and it is not intended to be a permanent transition, but and I don't have a defined period of time, but over some period of time that would revert back to the administering entities. But because this was an emerging issue, this was moving very quickly, the AICPA thought it best to kind of pool all of these so that it goes through one streamlined approach, giving them and the administering entities an opportunity to kind of get the resources necessary to address this elevated risk. So that's sort of what's happening. But in terms of the identification of those firms, it is similar to what firms are doing now when they either enroll in the program, or if they're already enrolled in the program, as their next peer review is coming up, they have information that they provide to us 6 months prior to their scheduled peer review. That information includes questions about their structure and their ownership that would enable them to find that. So at least that's sort of the background information around that. I don't know if that provides some clarity on this specific step that's been added.
Thanks for that, Mr. Simidian. So it seems maybe that with respect to that bullet point, Michelle, that it's really assist the CBA as appropriate and practicable in reviewing updates to the program associated with firms who are utilizing alternative practice structures, potentially after understanding what's happening and what the risks are, which it seems that the AICPA already has identified this as a high risk area and pulled it back. Then our group might be in a position to assist the CBA. And right now it's emerging, and we're figuring it out and learning. So it seems that review is the appropriate position for this committee, is what I think.
I have that edit down, and I also have an edit to kind of rework the Pennsylvania recommendation to make sure it's clear that we're not solely looking at that one state. And then adding AICPA into the last recommendation.
Great. Any other? Well, I think this is still your item, Michelle.
I see that Rich still has his hand up, so I want to make sure that.
No, I'm sorry. No. My apologies then.
Okay. So I know we did jump, straight to the recommendations. I have received at least one, comment regarding some typos within there. So if there are any other small issues related to typos or grammar, please do let us know. There was also an addition to this report related to, Matthew, what table was that where you added in that description? Do you remember?
Specifically with the,
I just wanted to point it out because it's new in case,
you mean?
sorry, we're going dark in
Table
here.
1 or table 15? They both were updated, but table 1?
Is table 15 where you added how to interpret it?
No, table 1.
Table 1.
Yes.
Okay. I do want to point that out. So if we look at table 1 on page 10, we did try to include an explanation of table 1. Table 1 is not new. We have included this table for several years now. I think it was added upon the request of one of the prior PROC members. But we wanted to make sure that people understood how to interpret the table. So if there are any grammar or just changes just to the language, not on what is said, not on the context, then you can just send that to us. That really is the paragraph directly above table 1 on page 10. And so unless there are any other comments, Fausto, I send it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Center. Any final comments or questions from members? Seeing or hearing none. Next is public comment. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
All right, WebEx, now is the time to raise a hand. You can do so by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. And we're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Prior to adjourning the meeting, do any members have suggested topics for future committee meetings? Seeing or hearing no comments. There are no members of the public at the CBA. Moderator, please open it up for public comment.
All right, WebEx, now is the time to raise your hand if you have a suggestion for a future meeting. You can do so by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. So that was our final item. The PROC meeting is complete and we are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.